What's up, everyone? Chilling and maintaining, man. Chilling and maintaining. Chilling and maintaining, man. Chilling and maintaining. 10:23 at night here. 65 degrees outside, man. So it's a nice night, cool, smooth. 4/10, 2026. So today's my ex-wife's birthday. So you know. Just gotta wish her a happy birthday, And then, tomorrow is my son Milo's birthday, his 13th birthday though. So he'll be 13 years old, man, and definitely growing fast, growing fast though. So, when I take a look back at it, 13 years ago, it was just crazy. It was just crazy though that my ex-wife was actually pregnant, with my son Milo on her birthday, and she was actually in labor. She was actually in labor, on her birthday. And I just remember that day that I was going to work. It was a gas line, and in the car, a white Lincoln. We had a white Lincoln. I think it was like a 94, 95 Lincoln Town car. And I remember her taking me to work, and I was driving, and it was just rough because the brakes was like really going out. So so right after she dropped me off at work, she went straight to the mechanic, and we're just praying that day that she just get there safely and just take it from there though, so and get that brake line fixed. But 13 years ago, like she was in labor. She was in labor with my son Milo though. So, back to back. So hers is the day. And, like I said, Milo's is tomorrow though. So, he wants to go out, and, so we're going to do that though. And yesterday, I definitely talked about, forgiveness. How important that is, how important, forgiveness is. And, don't want to touch on it too much. I do want to do a segment though that gets a little deeper into it though. But, those of you who watched, I appreciate it. It was definitely a, something I was freestyling, sort of like right now. Usually when I do videos, like, I prepare a little bit more, but, right now I'm freestyling it, still working the night shift tonight though. So, I just kind of figured like, might as well just still drop a little something, before I go into work though. But, just to recap, just a notch though. Yeah, I mean, just forgiveness, man. Like forgiveness is the key. Like it's the key though. So, and I talk about that because, yesterday was a crucial moment for me. And here's why. For those of you who know, my mother has also been dealing with homeless for a very long time, and she was staying in the tent over there on North 5th Street, I think 5th and Harris, and it's a little tent. She was staying in the tent, for a while, and so I go visit her at work, while I'm at work, and, leaving church at times just to go visit her, just to check up on her. And, she got a dude with her, still not the best dude, but I always heard that, he was always putting her hands on her, and, my mom always knows how to pick these dudes that's always been abusive and just want to take. So, when I was younger, I got tired of that. And, I always found myself almost getting into a physical altercation with these dudes. But after a while, as I got older, it's like, man, I can't do that because, she's most likely going to go back to him. And then now I'm a risk, my freedom. I'm a risk my parenthood. I'm a risk, my family and everything else in between. And over the years, I did try to definitely help out my mom. Everywhere I stayed at, I definitely offered her to come, and, she just did not, just comply, just did not comply though. So, but moving forward though, you know, the last time I saw my mom was maybe like last month sometime, and she was walking on 3rd Street. She had she had her, bags of clothes with her with a cart. I gave her a couple of dollars though. She said she was going to go wash her clothes, and that was cool. And she was walking. Yeah, she was walking, and she's still not in the best of health. She's losing eyesight in her one eye, and then she has a glass eye. In her left, she has a left glass eye, I believe. And but she has like glaucoma in the right eye, so she's definitely losing her sight. But but it was still good seeing her that day, that morning. And she was walking, and and she said she was staying at some shelter or something, downtown. And so I was like, all right, cool. But then, the next time I heard, one of my coworkers said that they saw her in a wheelchair. And so I was like, man, what happened? I went straight to it though. I was like, yo, did he, did the dude put his hands on my mom? And like I said, man, I definitely wanted to confront him if he did. But I just always just let it go. And every time when I go see my mom, man, she's always like fired up, man. So them spirits is really coming out. Sometimes, man, she'll talk and, just say things, and I get emotional. I'll cry. I'll only spend just 5 minutes with her when she's, drinking and just not in her right, stable mind. And then I'll cry because, at times she'll say things, man, like, you a cop and, why you come over here and things like that, though. So it really hurt. But I understood that it wasn't her. I understood that it was definitely just the spirits and just what she's been battling for years and years and years at time, though. So but when I heard that she was in a wheelchair, I got discouraged. I was still peed off, but it was like ain't really nothing I can do. So yesterday, when I was at work, I went to go visit her, and I wasn't going to do it, because I already know that, I guess that, her and the dude was arguing, and he basically kicked her out of the tent, so I'm like, who is he? But, but when my coworker said that he was pushing her in the wheelchair, I kind of figured she was back, back in the tent. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go visit her. I'm gonna go visit her and just put my pride to the side or whatever. I'm just gonna visit her. It's my mom, regardless, regardless though. And so I did. I went over there, and she was in the tent. They was both fired up. And went over there, and she came out the tent. I helped her up, and sat her in the wheelchair, and we was talking. Gave her a hug and everything, and telling her a little bit about Christ and how important it is. And I was telling her that I got a new place and everything, and I just want to stop by, say how she was doing. I love her and everything else. And she was asking about the children. She was asking about my ex-wife, just asking. And I was just telling her. In the meantime, the dude was just popping off. He was just popping off in the tent. I guess, he had some trauma or something, when he was younger, that, some police or something, shot his dad or something. I don't know. But like I said, he was already fired up. So I just kept on, rolling it off. And he was just popping off at the mouth. And then it really got to the point where I was like, listen. And I even said, yo, listen, young man, Mom, I don't even know if he knows my name, but, my name is Buddy, or, CSA Brooks, because I was working. And, so I was like, that's respect, respect at this particular point. And, and I was still talking to my mom, and my mom was like, just don't be talking to my son like that. And I'm like, Mom, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's men, it's men amongst men. I'm a grown man. I'm 42, finna be 43 though, so I can hold my own. Plus, if my man want to get jumpy, I'm a spraying with my pepper spray, if he wants to get a little yancy. But, but thank God he didn't really get up. So after a while, man, I was just looking at my mom, and I said, Mom, you know what? I'm getting tired of seeing you like this. I'm getting tired of you, sleeping in this dump. It's trash everywhere. I mean, you already smell like urine, like you're already dirty. It just, yo, it's time to come back home. It's time to come back home. And I told her that, and she started crying. And she was like, well, you know, she was told that she has to leave the land that she was staying on, living on, by Monday, and that she talked with somebody to to get a storage to put all of her stuff in, and she had like a couple $100 for the storage, and they were supposed to meet the person at like 1 o'clock. Well, when I showed up, it was already like 1:30, 1:38. It was going on too. So by them being fired up, they already done missed that appointment. But she kept on talking about it. You know, she kept on saying, man, I gotta, you know, get out of here, get a storage and all this other stuff. And I said, Mom, listen, man, forget the storage. Forget this crap over here. Forget this dude, man. Forget all that. Come home. Let's go. You know what I mean? Let's do this. Let's go. And in the morning, before I went to work, I just got them reading my daily devotions, and it was telling me about, you know, sharing and spreading the word of Christ, and that's our job, you know, to do so. And so it just hit me, you know, it hit me when I was talking to her. And so she was like, you know, for real? I said, yeah, Mom. Like, come on, man. Like, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's. You don't even gotta grab anything. You don't gotta grab no clothes. You don't gotta grab no sneakers. You don't gotta grab anything. Only thing you gotta do is just come on, and I would be here in the next couple hours when I get off of work. And so she was like, really? I said, yeah. She was like, well, son, you know, he's going to put his hands on me. I said, well, look, Mom. I said, well, check this out. If he lays even one finger on you, one finger, I'm basically going to call dispatch. I'm going to tell dispatch I need an officer, and he's going to get locked up. And I said, matter of fact, he ain't going to do nothing, because I'm going to call myself out right here. I'm going to let dispatch know I'm here. So if anything pop off, then even dispatch know I'm here, and the police know I'm here, my co-workers, my colleagues, and they going to come in less than 60 seconds, and it's going to be a problem. So I told her, I said, well, listen, sit in your wheelchair, sit outside of the tent, and I'm going to be here. And hand me the $200 though, because I already knew that he'll probably take it. You know, he'll take the cash anyway and go drink it up or whatever. So so that's what I said. You know, I said, do that, and I'm gonna stay around the area. I'm gonna ride around the area, still be here. And like I said, if anything pop off, then, you know, it's gonna be on and popping though. The boys is coming. And so she was like, all right, you know. She said, for real? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, cool. So she gave me the $200. As soon as she gave me the $200 though, I went to Rose's at the Uptown Plaza. I had you know, bought her some new outfits. I bought her some you know, some undergarments, some socks, sweatpants, you know, t-shirts, you know, sweat outfits, you know, body wash, soap, you know, shampoo, you know, things like that though, you know, things like that, pajamas and stuff like that though. So you know, so I did that. So I basically said, well, listen, you don't got to worry about no storage or nothing like that though. Like, your cash is going to go to good soil, you know what I mean? Because I'm not here to take, I'm here to provide, and I'm here to add on, and I'm here to be a blessing though. And that's what I did. You know, I bought her a pillow, all with her cash though. Like, she definitely spent it. You know, I mean, she had it though. She gave it to me, but I spent it. And but I spent it all on her, so she know once again that, you know, her cash is going to good soil, and I'm not playing. So then when I came back after work, you know, she was in the tent laying around with the dude. She ain't have no bottoms on, and so like I said, it was already passed out. You know, they already done drunk a fifth of vodka. They was already passed out. I'm knocking on the tent. I said, Mom, come on, let's go. It's time. It's time. It's time to get on up out of here. Took about like 5 minutes, you know, for her to get up, and I told her it's time. I said it's time. It's time. It's time. It's time for you. It's time for you to go. Let's go. Let's get on up out of here. I said, forget him. It's time to roll. And we did just that, you know. So I helped her put her pants on. She didn't have any undergarments on, so I helped put her pants on, put her in her wheelchair, wheeled her to the car, and you know, told her that I got the stuff. Like I said, she was already fired up, you know, fired up. And she didn't know where I lived at. She didn't know where I stayed. But I said, Mom, let's go. Let's roll. And we did. And she was like, well, you know, what about, can I get a beer? I said, you know, sure, I'll get you some beer though. So I didn't tell her, but you know, I said, yeah, I'm gonna get you some beer though, but and I said it to myself, but I said, yep, I'm gonna get you some beer, but I told myself it's gonna be non-alcoholic. And that's exactly what I did. I said, we're not bringing no natty daddies up in here. We're not bringing, you know, your fifth of liquor up in here. We're not doing that though. So, and like I said, she was still fired up. You know, she could still barely, I mean, she could barely walk. So I helped her up the steps, man, basically carried her up the steps. You know, ran her bath water. I said, she was like, man, listen, I just want to take a bath and everything. I said, cool. So I ran her bath water, got her clothes all together, got her pajamas all together, and, you know, told her to put the clothes that she had on that was already, you know, soiled and all that other stuff, man, smelled like alcohol and outside and tent and garbage and funk. You know, I threw that stuff out. You know, I threw that stuff out in the dumpster. And, you know, but, yeah, so I definitely, it wasn't planned, but I definitely took the initiative to, you know, you know, to get my mother, you know, to get my mother and get her out of that tent and get her off the streets and into a home. And, you know, like I said yesterday, when I was talking about forgiveness, man, that's how powerful forgiveness is. You know, I could still be bitter, even at 42, 43 years old, but, you know, put all that stuff to the side, man. That stuff's in the past, though. I honor my mother, and that's also part of my mission. That's also part of my purpose at this particular point. You know, and that's just what I decided to do. You know, I decided to take my mother up under her wing, up under my wing, and you know, help her get her back on point. You know, and why not? You know, I'm the oldest son. I'm the first son between my dad and my mom. I'm the only child. You know, growing up, my mom and dad wasn't never together. I had a stepmom and you know, for 30 something years, 40, almost 40 years maybe. And she always had dudes. So, you know, I never really had that dynamic, you know, like I was talking about yesterday, with my mother and father up in the same place. Only time I really heard stories about that is when I was a baby and when I was younger. But even when I was young, you know, it was, you know, it was still, you know, me living with her or me living with my dad. And it was just like that. It was just always bitterness, unforgiveness in between them. And plus their trauma and everything else, though, that they experience in life. But I say all that because, you know, that basically goes to show my growth. Not to mention that basically goes to show my growth within Christ. I trusted Christ. I trusted Christ, and I trusted Christ with my decision. And also reading the word like I always do every single morning before I went into work. And like I said, that wasn't planned. That wasn't planned, though, but I grabbed my mother up. And, you know, so she's basically, staying with me. I had a talk with her today. I mean, you know, she's looking well. She's smelling much better. She's walking much better now. Even if it's only been 24 hours though. So, you know, you'd be surprised with a fresh shower, a cozy place, and a place I got 2 ottomans for, you know, from my couch. I hooked them up, you know, so she could sleep on, everything else in between those. So, I can honestly say that, my mother's looking much better, and sky's the limit. And, you know, she's going to start going to church. She's going to start, you know, coming to church with me and everything else in between those. So, just want to give you guys an update with that, man. That's the power of forgiveness, man. That's the power of trusting Christ. And that's the power of what God can do in our lives. 19 minutes, 20-something seconds. Can't believe it went past that quick. But for all you guys who watched, you know, my video yesterday, I appreciate it. Appreciate the likes, man. Appreciate everything else. You know, once again, happy birthday to my ex-wife. And for my son Milo, happy 13th. We're going to check you out tomorrow. Appreciate you guys, man. Stay up. Stay blessed, man. Looking good, smelling good, man. Peace out. holla at y'all, man. Love you guys.